Welcome back, everyone. Mr. Allen here. So we're at the end now. We can finally finish up our Impossible Quiz. As you can see, I'm back in the Impossible Quiz module. Here is the public lives equals 3 that you should all have in there from before. And you can notice that I've created a new sub now called check dead. And the intent of check dead is basically to make a new command that's available to all the forms in the program. And it's what we'll call in order to, well, obviously, check to see if we're out of lives. In this case, it's pretty simple. If our lives equals 0, then a message box comes up, says sorry. Obviously, you can say, please play again, something like that. The command end just terminates the program regardless of what else is going on. We'll see that that's not quite true in a moment, but basically that's the concept. Now, there's not much to do here, so it's pretty simple. But of course, there could be a fair bit more going on. If we were in a different style of game, or if we had done more with the game, we could be in a situation where once the game is over, the player is asked to type in their name. A high score file is opened up to compare the player's score to previous high scores. And then basically, if that's what you're doing, you have to then go through all the high scores that were stored in the file, figure out where this player ranks, and then kind of resort the list, rewrite them to the file. So there can be a fair bit more to be done here. And of course, you don't want to have to do that multiple times. For our purposes, again, this is probably good enough. And then if we go back into the various forms, what we have to determine is where in our code do we need to then check to see if we're dead. And the answer is pretty straightforward. Anywhere where lives have been decreased. So in Form 1, you'll have probably 3 different buttons if you followed exactly what I did, where lives are being decreased, where a message box pops up that says -1 life. And then at that point, you need to check dead. And what it will do is, at that moment in time, it calls the sub called check dead, basically goes in here, and it checks just as simply to see if lives equal 0. If it does, then it puts up the message box and terminates the program. If it doesn't, it comes right back to where we were and moves on to the next step, which was display the new number of lives on the screen and then continue the program. And so if you just kind of go through form by form, in Form 2 with the timers, we decrease the lives inside the timer. And so at that moment in time, as soon as I decrease it by 1, it could have gone to 0. And so that's where I will check to see if you're dead. If you're not, then of course, again, the game continues as it was. If you are, then it finishes at that point. Similarly here, the timer, lives equals lives -1, display the new lives on the screen, turn the timer off, have the message box pop up, and then check the dead at that point. Down here as well, so this is the case where I've clicked too few times. Of course, I could click too many times as well. Again, decrease, turn the timer off, and so on and so forth, check dead. One comment here, and this is pertaining to the end command. It's a good idea to make sure you've turned off your timers before you try to end the program, because we've had situations in the past where the program will actually keep running in the background if the timer's running, and it'll reopen. So just sort of be aware of that you want your timers off before you terminate the game, regardless of what the game is. And as we go through these, same sort of thing. We had the restart, and so this is an interesting one because restart, if you remember in the maze, was a sub of its own that did all the dead sort of stuff. And as we sort of said before, after the message box comes up, we'll decrease the lives and everything else. And then, of course, here we will also check to see if we're dead after we've decreased our lives. So again, anywhere where we can be losing that life, we have that lives equals lives -1 command. At some point shortly after that, we have to check to see if we might have hit 0. And so I'll just stop there. Form 5 and Form 6 you can do yourself. Again, just if you've got them working, then it's wherever the lives have decreased. So I guess maybe the last comment then is just a quick understanding of the module. Here I've created a variable to be available to all the forms. Here I've created a command, essentially, a sub, which is just a new command that's available to all the forms. I can't actually run anything in here, but I can create things in here that can be run from the other forms. So I'll never be able to put a single statement in here unless it's inside of a new sub that I've created. But then again, that new sub is the actual command that I'll call from my forms to run this code.